We've got a packed house. Thanks for coming. We feel very fortunate that you've all chosen to be part of this session. We're going to bring in a couple more chairs, so bear with us for a few minutes. I think we can go ahead and get started. And as I mentioned, my name is Alyssa Merwin, and I am very thankful and excited to have all of you here. As I mentioned, I lead the SMB customer business for LinkedIn. And one of the things that I'm really excited about is for the first time, just about 6 months ago, we actually started to look at all of our customers across LinkedIn through a slightly different lens. And to provide a little bit of background, up until about 6 months ago, we looked at every customer as sort of the same. We didn't really start to think about what's different about small organizations and some of the challenges that they uniquely have, some of the limited resource constraints that I'm sure you're all familiar with. But 6 months ago, when I stepped into this role, it was the first time that we really stepped back and said, what do small customers need that are different than large global enterprises? What does it mean to have a smaller recruiting budget and smaller staff? How many of you in this room are the only person in your talent acquisition department? Yeah, a lot. And so I'm really excited that we are starting to look at this in a very different way, because it's requiring us to better understand the needs of this size customer. And by the way, there's a lot of variability, I'm sure, in the room, but I think that we can all relate to some of the same challenges. And so the thing that I wanted to say is, first, thank you for bearing with us. And secondly, I hope that in the not too distant future, we'll be able to really be more thoughtful about how we support your needs uniquely. And so if you have ideas or feedback, I am all ears, and I would love to invite you to seek me out. I'll be here throughout the session and then afterwards to provide any guidance on how we can really support you and the needs that some of the organizations with smaller teams and more limited budgets are dealing with. We are spending a lot of energy really in this segment in particular. So thanks again for joining us. I'm going to turn it over to Kyle, Paul, and Natalie Miranda for this session, who have some great perspectives on how leaner teams can really leverage some of the unique assets of smaller organizations to have incredible impact when it comes to talent acquisition and recruitment. So Kyle, please come on up.
Thank you so much, Alyssa, for the warm introduction. Thanks to all of you for making the trek all the way up here. Earlier, I was talking with one of our marketing team who arranged this event, and she was telling me how to get up here, and she's like, and you go up those stairs, turn right, then you turn left, then take another flight of stairs up. And I was like, I'm going to need to start writing this down and take my Google Maps with me. And I can't believe so many of you guys made it up here. So thanks for bearing with us and making the way all the way up here to talk about small and medium-sized businesses. I want to expound a little bit on Alyssa's question about how many of you are the only HR professional in your company. In fact, to do that, since we are so packed in here, I'm going to give you guys a chance to spread out a little bit by standing up. Can everyone here stand up for 1 second? I know you just barely got settled in, now you're standing back up. So remain standing, if you would, if you work at an organization with fewer than 5,000 people. So if you got more than 5,000, go ahead and sit down. All right, so what about fewer than 1,000 people? Okay, so the majority here are, what we classify as small businesses, right? Fewer than 1,000 people. How about fewer than 500 people? So if you've got more than 500, go ahead and sit down. Oh, wow, this is great. How about this, fewer than 250? All right, we're going to find the smallest company we got in here. All right, fewer than 100. Who has from a company fewer than 100? Oh, this is great. Fewer than 75? 78. All right, what about, how many? Oh, you just told me. 45. 45?
Less than 20.
20? Okay. 16? 60. And this is our winner right here. Let's give her a hand. 20 people. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't even.
No, it's okay, I'm in 40.
40, okay. You're very close, very close. Tell me your name.
I'm Tang.
Tang, what's the name of your company?
It's Internship Desk.
Internship Desk?
Yes.
And what do you guys know? I know we learned this was a stupid question to ask from the last session, but what do you guys do?
My company, we run career development and business immersion program for students to do it in the U.S. as well as bringing U.S. students and European students to emerging markets.
Oh, exciting stuff.
Yeah, here in the U.S. we bring international students who are studying in U.S. universities and bring them all to Chicago in the summer for a full immersion program.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So tell me about your recruiting team.
One.
Just you. Surprise, surprise. Think-
And business development.
And business development. So that was going to be my next question. So go ahead and sit down. Thank you very much, Ting. Let's give Ting a hand for bearing with us. Oh, and Ting, I've got a limited edition LinkedIn St. Patrick's Day t-shirt. Now, if this doesn't fit, don't worry. It's limited edition, very valuable. You can probably sell it on eBay for at least $1. All right, maybe $2. All right. So, Tang, you're the only one at your company who does recruiting. Now, I know a lot of you are in the same boat. You're the only one who does that. Now, my question is, how many of you have come to a conference like this, not unlike the group we have right here? You've networked with other recruiters that are talent acquisition professionals, and you start talking to them, and they're from one of these large organizations. They start complaining about, oh my gosh, my recruitment team. Yeah, we've got 15 recruiters, and they're never bringing the right talent in. And you're just like, are you a team? Are you What would that be like? And you're smiling, oh really? Yeah, that must be very challenging for you. I'm the only person. I do this all myself. How many of you have felt that before? And how many of you have felt outmanned, kind of like you're the Glass Joe up against Mike Tyson here? You're like, how in the world am I going to compete with somebody who has all those resources, an entire team of dedicated sourcers, as well as a really strong brand? I mean, these guys are Coca-Cola, they're Apple, they're Google, they're all these names that people know about their consumer brand. And I'm trying to recruit for I already forgot the name of your company. I'm so sorry. Internship desk, right? And you're trying to build this brand that they've never heard of. So if you feel like that, you've come to the right place. Because it turns out our belief is you guys can not only compete in this war for talent, but you can win. Because as it turns out, everyone loves an underdog. There are a lot of great underdog stories. I mean, from Buster Douglas to Jeremy Lin to Nelson Mandela. I mean, the list goes on. There's some great underdog stories. Perhaps the most well-known is one you've probably all heard of. It's from a book named Samuel that comes from a larger book called the Bible. Now, for those of you who haven't read, spoiler alert here, all right, there's this shepherd who goes up against this mighty Goliath, the best warrior in the land. And here's the spoiler, earmuffs if you haven't read it. David wins, all right? And the question is, how does David win? And the answer comes from a book. Well, I mean, the answer comes, you can read it in the book, the Bible, but there's a book that recently came out from Malcolm Gladwell. Has anyone seen this book called David and Goliath? Malcolm Gladwell, he wrote a number of other books. He's written a number of books, Blink, Tipping Point, Outliers. But his most recent book talks about companies like yours. How are they winning in these wars against these Goliaths out there? And it's not just companies, it's all types of people. But the reason he says that David won, and it makes a lot of sense, well, David, while he was outmanned in terms of hand-to-hand combat, and he wasn't a warrior, he was a shepherd, he'd never fought before, but he had a tool that was pretty amazing. You see, a sling can kill someone from 100 yards away. A sword can kill someone from a couple yards away. You see, Goliath couldn't touch him. David was small, he was nimble, he could move about. And guess what? If David would have missed with that first rock, he had 4 others. He wasn't going to be like, oh, I guess the rock thing didn't work, I'll go fight this guy hand to hand. No, he would have just pulled out another rock. He had 5 of them and thrown the next one at Goliath until he hit him. And if Goliath charged him with his 100 pounds of armor, you know what David would have done? He would have stepped aside and ran back and thrown more rocks all day long. You see, David was fighting on his terms. And that's what we think you guys can do. As small businesses, you actually have some clear and significant advantages in terms of how you guys can fight for talent. And we're going to give you 4 areas that we think you guys have clear advantages, and we want to talk to you about how you can use some tools to be able to take advantage of the assets that you do have. Now, they're in 4 different areas, and we split this out into 2 ways to find people. Proactive, which is where you go out and proactively find people, which you all in this room have less time to do. Right? Many of you, as we talked about, are not just doing recruiting, you're doing a number of other things as well. You have less time for proactive search. Now, Natalie is here and going to teach us more about how to be more effective and more efficient with the time you do have to using this proactive search. But I think the key as a small business is focusing on the automated piece. How do I focus on the area where I can demonstrate the most leverage, where I can scale things out? And that's why our first topic is talent brand. Now, talent brand for a lot of you may be a new term. How many of you have, I assume everyone's heard the term employer or employment brand, right? How many of you have heard the term talent brand? Okay, now I'm not going to ask someone to do this, but in terms of delineating the difference between talent brand and employment brand, for me it was a little bit hazy. But here's how we've kind of defined it at LinkedIn. What we've seen is a shift in the way that not just talent organizations, but companies in general are marketing. The consumer brand, the world of consumer branding has taken this shift over the last 20 years, where it used to be an organization owned their consumer brand as well as they own their employment brand, because we as consumers only had one option, and that was consuming information. Right? We would download the information, whether it was from a billboard or a newspaper or even on the internet. We would read and try and make our own decisions. But in this Web 2.0, if you don't know what that meant when that came out in like the early 2000s, the idea of Web 2.0 was that we've entered an age where we as consumers and we as candidates now have the ability to upload information. We are part of this conversation. And that's the difference between talent brand and employment brand. Your employment brand is what you guys create as an organization. Your talent brand is what your organization, your talent, actually creates. The question is, where are you guys going to play in this game? Those who have won in the game of talent brand, who are winning in this war for talent, are those who have said, you know what, we understand that we can't completely control our talent brand. There's a lot of variables there we can't control, but we do want to influence it. So the question is, how can you guys, as talent acquisition professionals, influence your talent brand? Here's the key. If you decide not to take a voice or have a voice, not to be involved, you're just left with whatever comes to you. You have to end up with, you need a car? Well, we've got a Yugo. Here, take it. Turns out the Yugo was recently ranked the worst car in the history of the world. That means anything. So if you take ownership of your talent brand, you can create whatever type of car you want. You can create a Tesla out of your Yugo if you'd like. But you need to take ownership of that. Well, here's the good news for small and mid-sized businesses. If I'm a large organization who already has an established talent brand and people have a certain perception about my organization, to change that perception, it's like turning the Titanic around. We're talking about shifting this giant barge, and it takes time, it takes effort, it takes collaboration, it takes so many different things to even make a tiny, I've worked with a lot of these large organizations, and man, to even make a tiny change in wording on a web page, we're talking about an act of Congress to get this stuff done. Whereas with you guys, you have a tighter turning radius, and once you do have the direction set, you accelerate very rapidly. So what we've done for you today is we've created a roadmap, 5 things that you can focus on. Now, by the way, we're going to post all this on SlideShare, so feel free to take notes, but if you'd rather just get the notes we've already created, we'll send that out in email to all you guys and link you up to us on SlideShare so you can see these slides. But we're going to take you through these 5 pieces of this talent acquisition roadmap to build a great talent brand. So the first thing you need to do to build a talent brand, we're going to tell you also who has the advantage. Small, medium businesses, SMB, or enterprise, the larger businesses. So the first thing you need to do is get that executive buy-in and support. You will never change your talent brand if the executives of your company are not on board. They need to view talent as a top priority, and they need to take that seriously. Well, how do you do that? Well, there's a couple of things you need to focus on. One, you need data. You need compelling evidence. Any C-suite individual loves to see data. They love to see the reason that this is effective and important. And then you take partners with you. And when you think partners, do you take your LinkedIn relationship manager? Maybe that might be helpful, but more importantly, you take your partner, the head of sales, you take the head of engineering, you take the head of marketing. You come together and you all with a united front say, you know what, talent is important, and we need to focus on it, and we want to head in a new direction, or we want to adjust the direction we've been headed in. That'll be the key to get you started. Well, once you have that executive buy-in and support, the next key is going to be to listen and to learn. Well, and let me just ask you, sorry on that last one, Advantage SMB and why? How many of you have presented at one point or another directly to your CEO? I mean, that's probably over half the room. My guess is if we asked that same question downstairs, far fewer hands would have gone up. Most of your CEOs probably know you by name. Whereas downstairs, I mean, I worked in a 60,000 person financial services organization before I came to LinkedIn. I saw my CEO one time, and I worked in the same office as him. I only saw him once and was in an elevator, happenstance, and I was like, oh my gosh! Looked over and I said, good morning, and he said, and that was it. That was the only interaction I had with the guy. So executive buy-in and support is so much easier for small businesses, but it's key in order to make any difference. Okay, next, listen and learn. You need to know what people are saying right now about your talent acquisition organization. What are they saying when they go to the backyard barbecue, when they're at their t-ball game watching their kids and their buddy says, hey, how's work coming? How you liking it over there? Do you know what your employees are saying? Well, it's a lot easier to find out if you have 200 people than it is if you have 200,000 people to ask. Can you imagine the undertaking of trying to understand and get a pulse of what is our talent brand if you're working with an organization of that size? Well, start listening. But you don't just listen to your employees. Listen to people who are not employees, because that's really important too. Who are the people you ask? Well, ask people who left the company. You probably still are connected with them on LinkedIn. Reach out and say, hey, can we grab coffee? I want to find out why you left. Tell me how it is on the other side. I really want to learn these things. What about people who didn't accept your offer? You gave them an offer they didn't accept. Find out why. Say, look, I just want to learn so we can know how to better position ourselves. Ask these questions and collect this data. So much easier for 200 people than it is for 200,000. Advantage SMB. So the next thing you do, once you understand where you are right now, well, then you go out and you craft a new message. Craft your approach, and this is where it gets really fun, all right? Because for SMB, you guys can be so original. You can be so real. You can have so much fun with this. Whereas, something my dad used to tell me when I was a kid, he said, Kyle, you can please some of the people all the time, and all the people some of the time, but you can't please all the people all the time. Well, guess what? If I have 200,000 people in my organization, I'm a global company with offices in almost every country in the world, I kind of have to try and please everyone, which is why my brand message is so boring, because I don't want to offend anyone. Well, look, if you guys are only have 200 people and you're focused on a specific geography and a specific demographic of people that you're trying to hire, you can be bold, you can be daring, you can be a little bit edgy, because you only need to please the people who are in your target audience. So craft something that's very unique and original to your own company. We're going to give you a few examples of some things we've seen from small businesses that might be something that will at least get you thinking a little bit about that. So finally, you've got the message, you know what you want to get out there, promote and engage. So this is where we go get a Super Bowl ad, right? I mean, that's how we promote it. Well, no, we're small businesses. We have 200 people. We can't afford that kind of advertising. So what do? You start with your most valuable asset, and that's your employees. Talk with your LinkedIn relationship manager. They can talk to you about some great ways that you guys can leverage the employees that you already have. Some of this is involving with just getting them to update their profiles, put their picture on their profile. 14 times more views come to people with pictures on their profile than those without. Imagine what would happen if you just had all your employees put a picture on their profile. That's where you start. Where do you go from there? You think about the different people who have influence. Think about your hiring managers. Every time they have a job, they should be sharing that with their networks. How do you leverage these networks that already exist to get this message out that, hey, this is actually a great place to work, and there are a lot of advantages to working here over working at a large company. Finally, and again, so much easier to do that with 200 people than 200,000, right? So that's a no-brainer. It's definitely SMB as far as advantage. So finally, let's talk about the last one. What do? When you start this out, you need to have some metrics that you're trying to influence, right? You take data to your CEO and say, look, this is the challenge we're having, this is what we want to change, and then you measure throughout the process. Are we making improvement? Are we making progress? Well, advantage here we say mixed because, well, as it turns out, we've talked to organizations who have data scientists who are exclusively focused on talent acquisition. And you're like, wait, I'm the only person in HR for my entire company. How can you tell me I can compete with a team of data scientists? Well, it's mixed because it turns out these data scientists are dealing with this massive data set of 200,000 people, where you guys have a much smaller data set. You can probably do in the back of an envelope some of the same stuff that they're doing. So we think that that's kind of mixed. But at the end of the day, here's some great things you guys can do to influence your talent brand. And it's actually a lot easier for you guys to make these changes and adjustments than it is for a large organization. So let's give you a few quick examples of what we've seen that's really worked. Sungevity, okay, this is a solar energy company, doing some great things in the world of talent acquisition. And how they've positioned themselves is, hey, look, benefits, fun place to work, that's all great, but you know who we want to hire? We want to hire people who want to join us and get on this clean energy crusade. We're changing the world here. We're looking for people who want to change the world, who are passionate about what they do. It's a great message, and it's a great reason that a lot of people are going to work for this company. Here's another great idea. This is Sandvine. These guys are in the network equipment industry, so they compete with the likes of Cisco and some of these other huge companies. And their message is, you know what? If you want to be a small fish in a gigantic ocean, go ahead, be our guest. But look, if you want to go somewhere where your ideas will be heard and transpire into reality, helping to shape tomorrow's internet, you might want to come think about working for us. This is an advantage that each and every one of you have. My little brother works for this 5-person company. All right, I have more education than him, I have more professional experience than him, but when I talk to him about what he's doing and the decisions that he's making that are influencing the future of this small company, I get jealous. I'm like, man, it's amazing. I can't believe you have that type of influence and that type of say in what happens. That's a huge selling point, so make sure you use that when you communicate. This is a cool one. We're not for every. Who went to Talent Connect in Las Vegas last year? Great. So at Talent Connect, we had this guy on stage, on the main stage. His name was Ed Nathanson. He was tons of fun. And this is that idea that you don't have to please everyone, right? They say that's fine. Look what they say here. They say, look, if you like us, it's likely to be mutual. And if you don't, that's okay too. It's not you, it's us. Let's stay friends, okay? I mean, what a great message. It's like if you go to their career page on LinkedIn, watch their videos, they're zany. And a lot of you are going to watch and be like, man, that's ridiculous. I'd never work there. And they say, great. We don't want you to come work here because you're not a great fit. Right? They're like, we're wasting our time interviewing you if you already see that this is what it's going to be like. But for those people who are out there like, that's my dream, then that's the people they want. And that's fine to do that. Remember, they've got a specific target audience. Yeah, great.
What company is
It's called Rapid 7. Rapid and then the number 7. Oh yeah, sorry, it's right down here. It's very small, but Rapid 7. Great question. And you know, one thing to do, if you want more examples like this, talk to your LinkedIn relationship manager. Be like, hey, who's doing a good job with this talent branding thing? And they'll give you more examples like this of things to kind of get you thinking that you can show to your executive and say, hey, look, people are doing this stuff and they're having great success. Finally, last one, Halogen Software. This is a pretty simple idea, but it's really cool. They created a group on LinkedIn, had all their employees join the group, and then what they do is, as candidates come or people who are interested, they say, hey, join our group and ask any question you want. We're transparent. We'd rather you find out now before we interview you or before you accept a job than have you find out 2 weeks in that this isn't the right fit for you. Complete transparency. Again, you can't do that if you're HP. You can't do this if you're this huge organization. It's just a mess. But with a couple hundred people, this is sustainable. So these are a few quick ideas of things that you guys might do to craft a brand that will make a big difference in the way you recruit talent. The next step, I'm really excited to introduce Natalie Miranda. Now I need to tell you, Natalie is probably the most qualified person in the entire world to share this session. She built the team of recruitment product consultants that teaches people how to use LinkedIn. So basically, she's built this from the ground up, and I'm excited to welcome her on the stage to share some of these great tricks with you guys.
Thank you. So to build on what Kyle was talking about with talent brand, right? We're going to talk about job slots here for a little bit and your job postings, your advertisements. This is a great opportunity for you to really take the opportunity to stand out when you're posting those jobs. So just like on the LinkedIn career pages that Kyle was talking about, each and every job posting allows you to do that same thing. Okay, great. So defy conventional wisdom. Right? Job postings are usually pretty boring, laundry list of skills that are needed, right? But really talk to the candidate that you're looking to hire and talk to them about the work they're going to be doing versus what they necessarily need to bring to the organization. If you can focus on the work they're going to be doing, you know, they're going to have those skill sets as well that you guys need. And dare to be different, right? Like Kyle was saying, you guys may not have the same legal boxes to check as some of your big competitors. So really take that as an opportunity and advantage. And let your brand soar. Each and every job posting is a billboard on the side of the road that you guys drive by every single night or morning commuting into your office. And it's a really the best opportunity to reinforce that talent brand that you're building. So let's talk about compelling job postings, right? So you do want to save the creativity for the description, not the title. So you want to use standard terms in the title to improve the quality match, right? So the work that we do for you guys, right? Whether we're sending you guys the matches or we're finding those matches and putting it on the LinkedIn home pages of the profiles. And you want to speak the candidate's language, right? It's so important to talk to your ideal candidate. Like the Rapid 7 example is a perfect example of it. You know, you don't want to attract the people you don't want at your company. So really start to speak their language and in terms that the right candidate's going to look at. I would go and have that hiring manager or maybe the peer set of those people tell you what the job is really like and put that in there. And highlight the position's impact. Right? This is becoming more and more important with millennials, right? That they're really interested in what work they're going to do and how they're going to change the organization, the department, the world, right? So you really want to get them excited about the specific projects they're working on and the results they're going to bring to you guys as an organization. And use accessible and engaging mobile-friendly format. So much of what we do is sitting in our pocket right now, right? Everyone has that smartphone that they're applying to. So you want to make sure, and we talk about this with in-mails a lot too, you want to make sure it's short, sweet, gets to the point quickly, and you get their attention very early on in the job description. So we have this great opportunity, a really cost-effective opportunity for you guys to put high priority on some of your positions and really lift where they are in how people are looking at them. So it's our sponsored jobs option, and it gets you 50 more applies by sponsoring the job, right? It's a very easy way to compete and highlight your jobs and get them to the top of the list that your ideal candidate is being served up in many different ways, right? On their homepage, via email if they exhibit job seeker behavior. So, great option. Talk to your relationship manager about this. But for me, this is an amazing way to sort of skip to the top of the list when people are looking for new jobs and have that right skill set for you. So you have this ability to shine this giant spotlight on what makes your company amazing, right? Open up with that instead of maybe the skills, and really build that talent brand with every single job advertisement. It's so, so important. Like Kyle was saying, the pictures on the profile, every single one of your 200 people is part of that brand. Every single job posting is part of that brand as well. Okay. So now we're going to talk about some boring stuff, search excellence. But there's a lot of stuff, again, we do for you guys. So I want to make sure that you guys are aware of it. I'm going to go through a lot of stuff very quickly here. And I want to encourage you all before I start to remember we have an amazing learning center in LinkedIn Recruiter. And all of the recruitment product consultants that Kyle was giving me so much credit for hiring, they run these sessions and they do an amazing job. And they do basic, they do advanced, they spend a lot of times on tips and tricks. And it's all there for you. So I would say for you guys and your teams to take advantage of that as well. But let's talk about searching for a little bit, right? Common searches yield common results, right? So you want to just think a little bit different and climb a little bit higher when you're looking for talent. And we'll talk about some reasons. Boolean, right? The algebra they said you'd never use, coming back to haunt you. So we have a bunch of modifiers we use, but we try to keep it really simple at LinkedIn. There's only 5, right? And or not are the top 3. And then we're going to talk about quotation marks and parentheses, just to make those search strings a little bit smarter. How many people have had a hiring manager not be able to tell you what they want, but they absolutely know what they don't want? Not is the most powerful and underused modifier in the world, but they know exactly what they don't want, so you might as well use it. Okay. All right, so let's talk about some of these. So you can see project manager doesn't equal project manager in quotes. Does anyone know why?
If you search project manager, that'll find anybody that has either project or manager anywhere on their profile. If you do it in quotes, it's flipping to that exact phrase.
Exactly. So the quotes, Boolean and searching only actually recognizes alphanumeric, the alphabet and numbers. So if there's a space, if there's a dash, you want to make sure you're putting it in quotes because those results are going to be different and they're actually going to be more on target for you, right? The second example, people write differently, right? I may be a VP, I may put periods there, I might be a vice president. All of those mean exactly the same thing, right? So you want to make sure you have those in there with the or statements so you're increasing your search results. And you also want to think about different titles mean different things at different companies. So you want to sort of think about your competitor set, look at other job postings and what titles they're using, and then continue that or string, especially if it's a hard to find individual, to make sure you're getting as big a result set as possible. Again, that not, right? We want some hands-on engineers. We don't want people that are the managers, right? Most powerful modifier you have, and you can use that with or statements as well, so you can put multiple ones in there, but this is probably the easiest example. I want someone that's going to roll up their sleeves and do it, not someone that's going to manage people, right? So really powerful to get your results exactly down where you want it. So this one here too, this is really the algebra, right, with the parentheses. You're okay with an engineer or engineering, but you want them to be a manager, director, lead, right? So this is going to take any of the phrases within the parentheses and combine them to make sure you're getting both and not just one. And again, with the vice president, I gave you the example, people write very differently, right? Sales, there's about 1,000 ways salespeople are titled, right? So this is a great example. You want sales and then all of those ors to make sure you're getting absolutely everyone that you can. And lots of examples, right? Whenever you have the space, you want to have it in quotation marks there as well. So think about different ways people state their company name. Right? PwC sometimes has periods, sometimes it's called PricewaterhouseCoopers. So think about all of that, right? We talked about title, skills, industry. Some people make spelling errors. Try engineer with 3 E's, right? They're probably not being found by other people, right? So they're probably not getting a ton of in-mail. So they're probably more likely to respond. You don't want those great candidates just because they made a little mistake, right? Disappearing and not being found. And some may debate spelling errors being a good, but some companies may ask engineers to spell incorrectly so they're not found. Right. Again, most easily found is not always the best candidate. We default to most relevant, but you can change that. So you can look at the bottom of the list first. A couple little changes, the top 25 will look very different for you. I always think about reverse engineering my searches and just thinking about it in a different way so that the top 25, the top 50 look very different for me. And then I use a ton of those filters on the side to just go, all right, let me try those 7. Okay, let me go back out to the big 112 result. Let me try those 8. Huge difference in what you can look at and what you find. And this is where we can do some work for you. You can save your searches. So there's a position you're probably always recruiting for, a position that turns over, or a position that your company is growing in. Right? If you create a search that really works for you, save it, right? And then you can just pick it up and then rerun it, right? Or maybe you want to add, like, they're a salesperson, but then they have this one other skill. You can just add the and to that original search string and find those folks for you. And then we save it. You can always go back to it if you didn't save it for 90 days. And then you want to let us do the work for you, right? So you can set alerts, and you can use, so alerts actually, it wasn't shown here, but any of these saved searches you can set an alert on. And then every day or every week, we will send you any new members that joined. Right? And we're still joining 2 members a second, I think, right? So there's a lot of people joining. There's also a lot of people updating their profile that maybe have that keyword that you're looking for. So if you do a save search and set an alert, we'll do that work for you, and every morning or every week we'll send you the new people that match that search for you. And then these 2 things are probably some of my favorite. The system is learning from you every day. Every search you do, every job posting you put up there, we're learning from that, and we're putting a little module up there saying, people you may want to hire. Basically, you've done a bunch of searches, you told us what you're looking for, these people might be right for you. So take a look at these folks. It may save you a ton of time. And probably my favorite is similar profiles. You find that great candidate, or that hiring manager says, I want another Kyle. And you go back and you pull up Kyle's profile and you hit similar profiles, and you're going to get up to 100 profiles very similar to Kyle's. A lot of the same keywords. You don't even have to put the search string together. Right? It's amazing. I find myself, I get lost in there. Like I'll find one person and then I'll click similar profiles to that or who viewed those profiles. And there's gold in there that isn't showing up in the first 25 or 50 results, right? So again, very quick, limited time here. Lots of resources on the Learning Center. If you don't want to take a class, there are short e-modules. There are tip sheets that you can utilize. You can ask your relationship managers. You can work with your RPCs as well. I'm going to turn it back over to Kyle to talk about engaging outreach and really talk about those in-mails to continue that extension of the talent brand.
Thanks, Natalie. Is it me or is it getting cold in here? Need some earmuffs and it's really hot, right? We've requested that they turn on the AC a little bit. So that's good news is air's coming and we're almost done. So on two fronts. The last piece here is critical for those of you doing the proactive outreach, right? If you're reaching out to people, remember if no one's ever heard of your company before, first impressions mean a lot. And for a lot of people, the first impression they ever have of your company is an email that comes in their box. So first let's talk about some of the stuff that people do that isn't that great. Avoid careless mistakes. There's a lot of stuff we see in the hundreds of thousands of emails that we've seen. We analyze these emails that you're sending and we see the ones that are working and ones that aren't. And here's a few things that you might want to look out for. So try not to make spelling mistakes. It's not the best first impression, unless it's engineer with 3 E's and then it makes complete sense. So look at this one. We're looking for a new role, like a dinner roll right now. But I wanted to follow up and gather your feedback. Like, I love her role. So this is great. This guy works for LinkedIn, and they send him an email and say, have you been avoiding LinkedIn? I hope he has, and he works for LinkedIn. So this one is great. This is an engineer that someone reached out to and was like, hey, you want to come sell stuff for us? And they're like, well, I mean, transferable skills. I don't know, engineering, sales. They didn't target the right guy here, right? He's an engineer, and they're trying to get him to go sell stuff or be a biz dev guy. And fine, this one's probably my favorite. This guy loves punctuation, whoever wrote this thing. I mean, look at this. We're looking for an engineer. He's got quotes around it. And then this was great. Any interest in having a casual chat about this role, ... a few minutes, ... you have an interesting background, ? And then period after that, right? It's like, you have an interesting background? Yes, you do. So really weird stuff. I mean, this is your first impression. So let's give you some golden rules. What are some great things you should be thinking about when you're writing these emails? A few simple points you should think about. First, grab their attention. Think about the emails you've received. Think about what people are always saying. And then do the opposite, right? I mean, amazing job opportunity, great job, that's not going to grab your attention. You've seen that a lot. Think of something that will grab their attention, something that's unique about your company or something that's unique about them. That's the key in an email. It's the key that Dale Carnegie taught us in How to Win Friends and Influence People. You're talking about them. The most interesting thing for anyone in the world to talk about? Themselves. So how do you do that? You show you're selective. Well, you do that by making sure it's a customized email that's letting them know this isn't just a boilerplate that I send off to every candidate. I'm sending it to you because of X and Y. You have great experience. I see you have an MBA. We're looking for people like that. I see you played lacrosse. That's fantastic. I did too. Whatever the case is, let them know that you actually looked at their profile. Conversational, this is so key. We see these emails that are like this long and have all this copied and paste material from their marketing department. Think of the emails that you get that are this long. What do you do with them? Delete. Right to the round file cabinet, right? So conversational and brief. Keep it very brief and short and to the point. And listen well. We say, how do you listen? I'm sending an email. Well, this is back to what we talked about earlier, right? Listen to what they've said on their profile. Listen to what they've done and talk about them. Yes?
What if on their profile there's just the title and there's nothing to go by to customize it?
Oh, so they don't have anything in the content? I mean, maybe you could say something about that. Say, look, I saw your profile and it's blank, but you have the title I'm looking for. According to the title, your experience matches what we're looking for. But here's the thing with an in-mail. The goal of an in-mail, what's the goal of an in-mail? Some people might say to get someone to apply for a job. You got it. It's to start a conversation. That's what you want. That's the end goal. You want to get them on the phone so you can tell them why this is an awesome place to work, why they should consider leaving what they have to come and see what you have. So if they don't have much to go by, tell them, hey, I don't have much to go on, but based on what I see, you look like it could be great. Can we talk? Something simple as that. Great question. So focus on the goals and not the job. So there's a guy named Lou Adler. Anyone heard of Lou Adler? He's kind of like the godfather of recruiting, right? He's like the man who knows everything. One of the things he talks about frequently is we focus too much on a job. You guys, it's so easy to say no to a job. I can look at a job description and be like, you know, that doesn't fit me. And to me, what that means is that company doesn't fit me. That's why you never want to put a job description in an in-mail, because you don't want someone to reject your whole company based on one job. So if you focus on the goals of your company or even on the goals of this part of your organization, like this is what our engineering department is doing. I mean, you guys heard Wade talk about the economic graph and kind of the vision of LinkedIn. I mean, if you articulate your vision as a company and that's exciting to someone, well, they want to talk about it, not necessarily because of the role, but because you're like, man, economic graph? That sounds pretty cool to me. I'd love to be on that rocket ship. All right, so that's the way you want to position this. Next, leverage content. You guys now have the ability to put content into your in-mails. All right, you can put images in there, you can put video, you can link out to other sources. So great opportunity to make sure you're leveraging the content that you already have. And 7, be patient, okay? You have to remember, you're building a relationship with people. All right, you're not trying to get a one-hit hire here. Some people aren't ready to move right now. And that's fine. That's why we want to have a conversation with them. Say, look, even if you're not ready to move right now, let's still have a conversation. Like if they come back and say, hey, now's not the time for me, say, completely understand that. Would you want to chat for 5 minutes? Maybe we can chat about when the best time might be and when I might reach out to you. I just want to start a conversation. Be patient with these folks. And finally, include a call to action. I mean, I think one of the best emails is just, hey, love the stuff you're doing, great experience, really impressed by you. Love to have a brief 5-minute conversation. You available on Tuesday morning or Wednesday morning, before 10 a.m., whatever the case is. The call to action is, I want to have a conversation with you. So a few very brief things. Hopefully it was helpful to you. But all in all, hopefully what you've taken away from our conversation today is, even though I'm a small business, even though I don't have all the resources of a large recruitment organization or a large organization with a huge brand behind it, I actually have some really, really significant advantages. I have a sling and 5 rocks. And it turns out my sling and 5 rocks is much more powerful than an entire team of recruiters. So thank you very much to all of you for your time today. I'm glad you raised your hands. We do have time. We've got about 5 minutes or so for questions before we take a break. So yes, please.
I was wondering, when you're talking about doing the in-mails and make sure you're spelling everything right, have you guys considered putting spell checks on here?
Oh, it's okay. Is it not?
Roadmap, maybe. I think there are browsers that you can use. Like if you use Firefox versus Internet Explorer, you'll be able. That actually has spell check. It'll underline misspell words. So I would think about a browser now, but it is something we're thinking about on a roadmap. But a simple browser change can do that for you today.
Question about using InMail for the individual that has 500 plus connections versus 3. What's the theory on? Now I know that the individual that has 3 might not get as many InMails, but has there been any data that has shown or any thoughts about?
Yeah, so I don't have any data I can speak to directly, but I think as LinkedIn hit its 11th year on Monday of this week, just a lot of people are at a lot of connections at this point. So for me, it maybe shows activity level. Someone that has only 3 connections may not be as active as someone that has 500 plus. And we capped it at 500 plus because years ago it was becoming a little bit of a competition who had the most. So we're just like, okay, 500 plus. We want them to be quality connections. But I don't necessarily know, other than someone may be more active than less active. I don't know that the number of connections indicates anything about the in-mails they get or they respond to.
To that question about activity, I cannot really see how active a candidate is in LinkedIn. There's a European counterpart, Zing, which shows the activity of a candidate, 100%, 80%. So I can see that. Is that something you're going to incorporate in LinkedIn?
Yeah, so I can answer it if you want to add to it.
Sure.
I think we're adding a lot of enhancements to the profiles that you guys see. We actually are showing a little bit more activity than we used to when you get a candidate up. You can see if they've added a status update, if they've updated, if they've been endorsed. So we're adding more and more of those layers in right now. I don't necessarily know how it compares to Zing in Europe. On the LinkedIn side of the house, we tell our members their profile completeness, and obviously when you're looking at a profile, you know what feels more complete than what doesn't. But we're adding those layers in on the profile 2.0 that you guys are looking in Recruiter.
Great question. Yes, back there.
About the email responses, one of the things that we're noticing is that we're getting a lot of false positive responses, basically saying things like they're accepting it, so it looks like a positive response, but it's negative. Thanks, but I'm not interested. Is there any way in the future to segment that out as being like, put another category? Because one of the things that my executives are coming to is like, well, what's the response on LinkedIn? Well, it's a 33% response rate, but when I actually break it down, it's a 2% positive response rate. So then it's negating the time that I'm putting in to actually getting positive. And again, I understand it's a conversation, it's starting, but as one person trying to recruit 70 open roles,
Wow.
time management here.
So certainly understand that.
So we're hiring.
Any engineers in the room? Any salespeople? Great point. I think one of the things I've seen a few recruiters doing that they've seen good success with is when someone responds back, at least that's showing some type of activity and response. And respond and say, hey, thank you very much for your honesty and candor. Do you know anyone who might be a good fit for this role? And they're getting pretty good response. People saying, you know what? I do. Here's someone who you might think about. So as far as I know right now, that's not something we're looking to change in terms of changing the way they respond or that we classify those who respond, but certainly something to follow up on that you might try. Good
Yeah,
point.
to me it's an open door, right? If they respond back versus they ignore, I would take that as an opportunity for referral or asking when might be a good time for them in particular. But again, I don't know anything either in terms of roadmap.
Just interested to know, like, what is the business development plan for LinkedIn for market outside of the United States? Being in the business that I'm in, I would like to track the global talent pool. And if they came to the U.S. and if they study in the U.S., the first thing they were told by the school is that you need to have a LinkedIn account.
Yeah.
These candidates have all their LinkedIn account built while they're in the U.S. They stay here for a couple of years and they return to their home country. And they still keep their LinkedIn account as far as I know.
Yeah.
But they slowly disengage because it's not as important. And I'm interested to know, if you're investing inside from a market like China, because often, my client will say, hey, you work with all this international talent pool. I'm opening up an office in China.
So we've got great news for you on that front.
Yeah.
The first news is 300 million members on LinkedIn. You know how many are in the U.S.? About 100 million. So that means about 1 in 3 Americans are on LinkedIn, which is amazing. But 200 million outside the U.S. And also that's where we're growing quickest. Right, so we're growing faster everywhere outside the U.S. because we're already highly penetrated here in the U.S. and there's tons of opportunity for growth. In China, we've just announced we hired a new head of China, and we have we have not been shut down in China, which is you laugh at that, but right now we're the only consumer internet company that's been in there for a significant amount of time who hasn't been. And so it's really an achievement right now, but we're making great progress all over the world. We have 27, I think, offices in the world, and almost all of them are outside the U.S. So.
Like you're engaging employers in the local market.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and students and universities the same way we're doing it here. And every one of those 27 offices, they're going out into those local markets and doing the marketing to get the members as well as the employers.
So I think we're at time, but Natalie and I will be around. So if you have additional questions, come on up to the front, chat with us. Also, anyone with an orange tag, that means they probably work for LinkedIn and they're probably smarter than I am. So chat with them. But thank you very much to all of you for joining us in the heat up here.
Not everyone, we ran out.